Welcome to Random and Memorable, a podcast from 1Password. I'm Matt Davey, 1Password's Chief Experience Officer.
I'm Sarah, one of the founders at 1Password.
I'm Roo, Head of Password Manager Development.
I'm Anna, the producer behind the show.
And we're the hosts behind Random and Memorable. Together, we offer up bi-weekly security advice, interview special guests from the cybersecurity community, and round up the latest security news in Watchtower Weekly. Plus, we may play a silly security game or two. So sit back and enjoy the show.
All right, what are we doing here?
We were waiting on for you, I think.
Which episode is this? This is 13.5?
We've done 135 episodes.
That's many.
You guys are legends.
I mean, some might say too many.
Some might say not enough.
I had a proud dad moment, literally moments ago. Sophia texted me. She goes, "Hey, Dad, what's the last 4 digits of my social security number?" And then I didn't get back to her right away, like within a couple of minutes. And I wrote back and I said, "What's it for?" She goes, "That's some form at school." I said, "Oh, okay." And then she wrote back again. She goes, "Never mind. It's in 1Password." And I went, "Yeah, yes it is."
Nice.
I was very, very happy.
Don't worry, I found it online.
Yeah, right? Just search for National Public Data. It'll come right up. All right, before we get into the show, I should mention our guest for today's episode because Dr. Erik Huffman will be joining us a little later on. I honestly had so much fun with this one. Erik is a cyber psychologist and security researcher, and I got the chance to talk to him about his cutting-edge research, which has uncovered 7 personality traits that can make us more vulnerable to cyber attacks. We chatted a lot about the human element of cybersecurity and how, as technology has advanced over the decades, our psychological skills have had to react and adapt too. It's a truly fascinating interview and a really fresh take on the topic, so definitely one worth sticking around for.
Which of those 7 personality traits did you find that you had, Roo?
Vanity.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm just picking the one that I probably have.
Okay, let's jump into some from the vault. This is our newest segment of the show where we like to spotlight something that's been happening in 1Password recently or something personally that we found very interesting that we're itching to talk about. And Matt, I know you have found something that is very interesting, so what do you have?
Okay, so the one thing from the vault that I wanted to bring up was this browser privacy check thing. I found it, and I found it fascinating. The thing that I found fascinating, if you click it, is just how much information your browser actually leaks. So if I click this button, the usual stuff it tells me is like, you know, who your internet provider is and all of that kind of stuff. But the wild thing is it tells me, okay, it accepts, you know, ads and tracking, and I'm logged in at Gmail and YouTube. This website knows that now. It can tell whether my laptop is charging. It can tell who the vendor of all of the hardware stuff is and, you know, what the JavaScript status is. It can tell what language I'm at. This was kind of wild to me.
All right, I'm going to do it.
The browser fingerprint was kind of interesting to me. I appreciated the battery level. Like, your battery level is this and your runtime is how many hours. And I'm like, I don't think my battery tells me how long I've got now. Like, this is a nice little double check there.
I guess the thing that I didn't really realize was just how detailed this is. There's a browser extension that you can install called Privacy Badger. If you look at this page, we'll put the link in show notes. You can install this browser extension to kind of muffle all of this data.
This is interesting. On my work computer, there's like no exposure. I'm not signed into any social media or anything. I should do this on my phone, see what's up.
And with that, I think we move on to some Watchtower Weekly, of course named in tribute to 1Password's Watchtower feature. This is where we like to share some cybersecurity news or headlines that have grabbed our attention and discuss them in more detail. So first off, this week we have a story from the New York Post. Facebook partner brags about listening to your phone's microphone to serve ads for stuff that you mention. A marketing firm whose clients include Facebook and Google has privately admitted that it listens to users' smartphone microphones and then places ads based on the information that is picked up. This is according to 404 Media. Cox Media Group, the television and radio news conglomerate, admitted in a pitch deck to investors that its active listening software uses artificial intelligence to capture real-time intent data by listening to our conversations, according to the report. So the company wrote in a pitch deck that advertisers compare this voice data with behavioral data to target in-market consumers. Cox Media Group, or CMG, noted in their deck that the consumers leave behind a trail based on their conversations and online behavior, and that the AI-powered software collects and analyzes said behavioral and voice data from 470 sources. Google removed CMG from its Partners Program website after it was contacted by 404 Media to comment on the matter. A Google spokesperson said, all advertisers must comply with applicable laws and regulations as well as our Google Ads policies. And when we identify ads or advertisers that violate these policies, we will take the appropriate action. So I think, like, not all advertising uses this. This is an opportunistic thing and doesn't kind of represent the majority, I would say. The parent company of Facebook and Instagram, Meta, admitted that it was reviewing CMG to see whether it violated any of their terms of service. They said Meta does not use your phone's microphone for ads, and we've been telling the public about this for years. A Meta spokesperson told the Post that we are reaching out to CMG to get them to clarify that their program is not based on metadata. That's 2 words, metadata. Man, I bet that was confusing. An Amazon spokesperson told 404 Media that its advertising arm has never worked with CMG on this program and has no plans to do so. So everybody's kind of washing their hands of this company, it seems. The company said that it would take any action against a partner that violates its rules, and Facebook is reported to be in a partnership with Cox Media Group, according to 404 Media. So last December, MindSift... what a terrible name. That is awful.
Yeah, that's really gross.
I mean, if you want to be an evil AI company, definitely name yourself MindSift. I don't want anybody sifting my mind. The company bragged that it was using voice data to place targeted ads by listening to people's everyday conversations through microphones on their devices. We know what you're thinking. Is this even legal? CMG wrote in its since-deleted blog post. It continued, it is legal for phones and devices to listen to you. When a new app or download updates prompts users with a multi-page terms of use agreement, where somewhere in the fine print active listening is often included. So, this I think is pretty gross, and I think this is something that you can only get away with for a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly, that pitch deck did not get them any new customers, I'll tell you that.
I find it very interesting that you can have a pitch deck that is like, hi, we're the grossest company that you can possibly imagine. And everybody claps.
For only $9.99, you can have it too. It goes back to the whole, like, are they listening to me? Because surely they're not, right? But, Jack, I said, was sick, right? So I'm, Mom, can you lay with me when I'm going to bed? Do the whole make me feel better thing. So I'm laying there talking to him as he's going to sleep. And he's talking about how he's going to work on saving up. He wants to buy a motorcycle, which is every mother's worst nightmare.
Good Lord.
So he's talking about it. I'm like, okay, well, what kind, and he wants to get some Yamaha something. And I'm like, don't they build keyboards? Like, Jesus, I don't even know what's happening, but whatever. But I'm just in there with him. Phone's in my pocket. I'm not on my phone, nothing. Later that night, I'm on my iPad, which is not connected to my phone. Like, it's a separate device. And then in the Facebook ads, here's this motorcycle, and it's a Yamaha. And I'm like, I've not talked about this. I've not Googled this. And it's like, you feel like you're paranoid for no reason when you see stuff like this. But then it's like, but it doesn't make sense. How else am I getting ads for Yamahas if something's not listening to me?
I had the same thing the other day, Sarah, and I feel the same way. I don't remember the specifics, but like, I got a YouTube ad for something Carrie and I had just been talking about, but didn't type in anywhere. And I was like, what? Like, what are we doing? How is this even possible?
And you feel like you're paranoid because everyone's like, no, it doesn't track, it doesn't do. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm just paranoid. And then it's like, but this doesn't make sense.
I'll tell you what I did find the other day, though, that I was like, that doesn't seem like that's necessary and also kind of dangerous, was that Amazon had microphone access on my phone. And I didn't remember granting it. And I was like, it doesn't need this. I never talk to Amazon. Like, no. And so I turned that off.
Interesting. I wonder if I have that. I was thinking about getting ChatGPT to just read out nonsense to my phone in order to kind of have them confused. I think if you've got a phone farm, you could really mess with them.
I'm going to show those robots.
Yeah, you can really fight the power on this one.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next one. A UK trio pleads guilty to operating a $10 million MFA bypass business. This one is from the Register. A trio of men have pleaded guilty to running a multi-factor authentication bypass ring in the UK, which sounds like a roundabout with a bypass road, but it is in fact a criminal organisation, which authorities estimate has raked in millions in less than 2 years. So these three have each admitted to responsibility for running OTP.agency, an underground operation that provided cybercriminals with access to tools to help them socially engineer targets to bypass MFA and ultimately steal money from victims' bank accounts, which is according to the UK's National Crime Agency, the NCA. For as little as £30 a week, the crew accessed MFA bypass tools for banks like HSBC, Monzo and Lloyds, while an elite level plan for £380 per week also granted access to Visa and MasterCard verification sites. It's estimated that more than 12,500 victims were targeted using OTP tools. It's not clear how much the trio may have stolen between September 2019 and March 2021, when they were arrested and the site was taken offline. But the NCA estimated it could be up to 7.9 million. OTP.agency began advertising its services in late 2019 in a Telegram group where the trio described themselves as the first and last professional service for your OTP stealing needs. Imagination goes wild. The NCA said the trio claimed, "We promise you will be making profit within minutes of purchasing our service." That's a heck of a promise. The group also claimed that they could grab a one-time password for any website, including Apple Pay and 30-plus other sites. Details of the technology underpinning the group's operations weren't shared, and it's still unclear if the trio manufactured their own malware or simply cobbled together others and then provided, it as a service to build their own product. This one's a fascinating one to me. Like, criminals that operate a better user experience for other criminals. It's kind of like very interesting.
All I can think is, what they say, it's all about the networking.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. With Watchtower Weekly in the bank, I think we can bring in today's guest. As I teased earlier on, Dr. Erik Huffman really opened up my mind to a whole new way of thinking about cybersecurity, having shared some of his innovative research into the human element and the psychology behind cyber attacks. If you enjoy this interview, then I thoroughly recommend checking out Erik's TED Talk, which we'll put in the show notes. But for now, let's get into my chat with Erik, and I think we'll probably just drop it in here. On today's show, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Erik Huffman. Erik is a founding researcher in the emerging field of cyber psychology, the study of how the human brain works while in a cyber environment. His research has begun to uncover biological tendencies in humans that allow attacks like phishing and digital social engineering to continue to thrive. He has applied his research with trailblazing results in over 200 organizations worldwide. Erik, we often talk about the more practical concepts of cybersecurity on the show, so I'm really excited to have you here and get into the human element and the psychology side of things today. Thanks for coming.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Cyber psychologist seems pretty niche, pretty new, not something I've actually heard before. Can you talk a little bit about how you ended up here? And did you invent the term cyber psychologist?
No, I don't think I invented the term. Cyber psychology is new in what the field likes to coin it as, like cyber psychology. Like, it's new, but it's actually not new. So if you think about the old, most impactful virus that we've all felt initially, like back in the old AOL days, the dial-up days where your mom would pick up the phone and kicks you off the internet, you're yelling at mom, and that big virus that we all remember, if you're old and got gray hair like me, is the old I love you virus. Like, if you remember that, because you get an email and the title of the email would be I love you. And then initially we all said, oh, who loves me? And so we began to click on those links, and we began to all fall victim to this social engineering, this psychological attack. But how I got here wasn't initially just that. I didn't just was a little kid, got an I love you virus. Was like, you know what, cyber psychology? Like, of course not. I was an IT manager for a large organization, and I received my bachelor's degree in computer science. Started off as a network technician, just driving store to store, fixing things. And then I received my master's degree, and my master's degree is in IT management. And so I was blessed enough, ended up getting promoted. And then when I was promoted, I initially thought, just like most people fresh out of college, like only dumb people end up getting hacked. Only bad organizations get hacked. And then I found out I sucked at my job because we got hacked. And then you realize, all right, and I started thinking, like, after we got hacked, am I stupid? Then it's like, okay, all right, anyone gets one. It happens once to anybody. And then we got hacked again, like 3 months later. And then I'm like, oh no. My gosh. And so my researcher brain kicked in. I started thinking, okay, not just bad organizations get hacked, not just quote unquote stupid users get hacked. And then I started thinking about what has changed and what hasn't changed. And if you think about the cliche, like technology is evolving at an exponential rate, like, duh, we all know that. But when I started really unpacking it, like, all right, what has changed? Computers have changed, processors have changed, networks have changed, IDS systems changed, IPS systems have changed. All the things have changed and evolved. The only thing that has stayed the same is us. And so when you think about the rate of data breaches and you think about the rate of innovation, they like mirror each other. And the number of records lost has gone up. The rate of innovation has gone up. The rate of technology has gone up. One would think if you're just looking at the numbers, what you're doing is not helping, it's actually hurting. But we know that's not true. Like that's not true. Like to say, hey, your spam filter is a problem, or your IPS system is a problem, or your password manager is a problem. That is not true. And so instead of looking at, okay, these things are hurting us, let me look at the people. Let me look at the humans. Let me look at us and see how we're contributing to our own problems, how we're contributing to our own data breaches. And that unpacked an entire world for me. And I'm blessed and I'm thankful for it. But yeah, it started when I sucked at my job, being honest.
I think it's really interesting to be able to take a step back in the way that you did, because I think that when you're in it, you are reaching for the next solution. You're like, well, okay, like time to harden the network, time to buy this software, time to do all these things. For you to sort of realize, like, wait a minute, hold on, like I need to take a step back from this and think about this problem more holistically is a really admirable thing for you to have done. Once you sort of took that step back and you started thinking more about the human element, like what was the hook for you? What was the thing where you were like, yes, like this is where I want to be and this is what I want to focus on? Yeah,
the hook was when I found that it exists, like that there is a legitimate studies that we can figure out how could we get a little bit better, each person. And so my first study, I just went to Black Hat and I just started asking hackers. They didn't identify themselves as white hat, black hat, gray hat. Didn't care. How do you start attacking organizations? And at that point in time, 97% of them, almost 98% of them said we start with people instead of technology. And so what I started weighing out, like what we do as IT professionals or cybersecurity professionals versus what the hackers is doing is not even close to matching up. And a lot of our initial thoughts was, okay, I need to patch the system. Okay, I need to patch this. And there's even a term, human patching. Like we need to try to patch the people. And once I started looking at that, I'm like, all right, we're actually going about a lot of this the wrong way for the everyday attack. I'm not talking about the crazy, the high up nation state attacks where, you know, they're sitting in their mom's basement, Cheeto dust everywhere and sipping on Mountain Dew. Like, those people exist. Yes, 100%. Those people exist, and those are dangerous threats as well. We should not saying we should stop the technology development, but the everyday attack. The everyday attack, in even this year, the Verizon data breach report says over 86% of attacks have a human element involved, and we're still contributing to our data breaches in a massive, massive way. that technology isn't ready to patch yet.
So you started out talking about, back in the day when we were, listening to dial-up modems and stuff like that, and the internet was so new, and everything about it was new, and I think that there was sort of an assumed altruism around the early days of the internet. Like, I certainly know that was something I experienced when I was young, is that everyone's like, this is great, like, everyone's just here to connect and share information, it'll be beautiful and wonderful. And then we start to see some infiltrations, we start to see some attacks. That was a generation that knew a time before the internet and then knew a time after the internet. We now have a generation that is thriving and operating in the world that has only known the internet. How do you see the difference between those two generations? How do you see the difference between those two mindsets, especially as we seem to be, we are moving more into an everything online, like your whole life online style presentation of personas out in the world?
Yeah, what my research has told me, conducting various studies throughout my career up to this point, different than what people would think, that the older generation is less susceptible to social engineering than the younger generations. One of the biggest reasons why, there's a number of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons why is because, like me, my social security number, I have typed it online 1,000 times. Like, when I bought my house, I typed in all my banking information 1,000 times. To do online banking and look at my bank statement online is so normal to me that I can't think of it another way. The old school way, the quote unquote old school way, seems highly inconvenient to the speed of life that I want. The older generation, they respect their privacy, they respect their social security number, and all that stuff. They do not want to put it on the Google machine. Yeah. Putting it on the Google machine, bad things could happen. And so there are a lot of ways there, the older generations that have known life without the internet, there's a lot of social engineering going on with all of us. But what I found is that when we start talking about targeted attacks to reveal financial information, sometimes you got to do a little bit more work for the older generation, because that social security number, that is huge to unpack. That bank account number is huge to unpack. Me, on the other hand, to say, hey, fill out this form and put in your bank account number and your routing information. Of course, I'm a think, but for me to do that is not weird to me. To say, hey, okay, fill out this form, put in your banking information. Right. Is not weird, because that's kind of what I've known. That's what I've grown up with. But those before the internet, man, that social security number, that bank account info, they're going to want to go into the bank to talk to somebody to have that transaction happen. Us younger folk, man, the less we can talk to people, the better.
Right.
So yeah. there's a paradigm there. Not to say that the older generation is way more secure. I don't believe in there being a more secure generation. It's just different avenues of attack for different kind of folks. You're going to have to probably work a little bit harder to get there. You're going to have to work for the more confusion principle of influence, because that comfort principle of influence that we have as the younger generation, the comfort attack vector that we have, they don't have that online. So you're going to have different barriers, different psychological barriers to break through in order to have success with them.
Yeah, I love that take, and I see that in my own mom, right? Like, I am continually amazed at how many times she has just shut down scammers that are reaching out to her for various things, right? She'll be like, that's fake. Like, no, delete that email. Like, not doing this. She'll call me or text me and be like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, she checks in every once in a while, and I always say, no, you're not supposed to be doing that. Please tell me you didn't give them any information. And she says, no, I didn't. But yeah, like, there's this hardwired point of view of like, you don't know who I am. I'm not giving you any information. If I want something, I'm going to come to you and I will, as a customer, but like, you shouldn't be reaching out to me soliciting this type of information, because it's not for you to know. It's really interesting.
Yes, sir. That's one of the biggest differences. And so when we conducted that study, it was fascinating to me. We think that the cliche of the technology natives, like, well, you're used to this stuff. The youngins are used to this stuff. That's why they're so good at it. But we're actually more comfortable with it, meaning that our psychological protections begin to like go down talking to unfamiliar people because we're still at home. We're in this comfort area of our home. We're in this comfort area of being in our chairs, might be in pajamas, laying on the couch, whatever. We're so comfortable. And to talk to someone that you've never seen or you've never met before in this way is comfortable.
Yeah.
And so that just gives one psychological advantage to the attacker. Because if you walked up to any person on the street that are the sane in the brain and say, hey, can you give me your social security number or give me your bank account information? 100 out of 100 would say no. But when you're online, the person is more prone to listen. And especially if you're writing through text, because the default as a human, the default voice you read in is your own. And so the attacker has the advantage because you're reading in your own voice, not in their voice, because you don't even know what their voice sounds like. And so you're reading in a comfortable zone, in a comfortable voice, and you're supposed to make the right decision. It is tough for us technology natives to just go ahead and think about the internet as a very scary place when most times it's not, because you're on your social media talking to some friends or you're looking up something online, you're watching YouTube, and you're just chilling. And then here comes attacker ABC when you're just chilling. And you're like, hey, what does this person want? Like, oh, okay, let me go ahead. Oh, fantasy football? Like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up for that. Let me go ahead and sign up that, email address, password. I'm going to use the same password that I always use because, that's what I do. And then boom, next thing you know, data breach.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it that comfort? Is that the main thing that comforters are taking advantage of here? Is that level of comfort and that sort of default mode of safe operating? Or are there other like tactics that are being employed that you think are more impactful?
Oh, there's a ton. So comfort definitely helps. It definitely allows the door to be open. But the most impactful, in my opinion, granted, everybody's different. I can run through, I'll list them out real quick. But one of the most impactful, in my opinion, is the liking principle of influence. So the more you like someone, the more likely they are to influence your behavior. This is as a person, man, woman, child, ethnicity, everything aside. Just because you like your friends, you act different around your friends than you do around people you don't know. That's a principle of influence there. And so when you're online and you have a social engineer trying to interact with you, and I can make myself look like however I want to look, especially if you start incorporating AI, if I just have a picture of a handsome man or of a beautiful woman, and you see that, and you begin to like that person, and they influence your behavior, and you've never really seen or heard that person, that is dangerous. Because people fall victim to scams because, quote unquote, their friends said to do this. Because you read a name like John Doe, then you begin to feel psychologically, your body gets those amino acids going, you begin to feel, and then you begin to act. Like, think about a time where your husband or wife, you're going through an argument and you see the name and you're like, hell no. Or if you're happy, you see the name, you're like, hey, what's going on, man? And they can say an inside joke and you just laugh and you smile at it. You see the name and then you begin to feel, then you begin to act. So take that to the workplace. If CEO begins to send you an email and you're fearful of your job because there's layoffs everywhere, you're going to see the name, then you're going to begin to feel, and then you're going to act. Yeah. And the CEO's like, hey, I need you to transfer $500,000 to this company. Do this right now. We need this deal ASAP. And so some people fall victim to that. Some people think twice, but you have to have a certain amount of relationship with a person to say, I know you say you needed this now. Hey, do you really need that? And they're like, no, I told you, go ahead, do this. That principle of influence is tough to break. Right. But there's others like reciprocity. You do something for me and you feel obligated to do something back. The example I like to use is you having a mint put on your bill when you go out to eat. That mint, they put that mint on your bill because you are likely to tip 20% more because they did that. Like when you go to a car dealership and they offer you water, coffee, popcorn, cookies, whatever, you are more likely to buy a car because they gave you something for free. Like that's how deep this goes. Like, that's how deep it goes. And so scammers will give you something, or they will help you out in some regard, and you're more likely to help them because they helped you. They gave you a little bit, so you're going to just open the door for them. Social proof, of course. So, like, if just prove that you're real influences behavior. Then scarcity. Scarcity is one. That's why you go to Amazon or eBay or whatever. They say, hey, there's one left, and it's always in red letters. Or car dealerships where they're like, hey, we got 5 of these cars left. Or cars in general where they make 100 cars, and so they're worth like 10 times more. You may not even like the car, but you're going to want it because it's scarce. So people really want them. And then authority influences behavior as well. Like, do this or else. We see a lot of that in government organizations. Government organizations I worked with and I conduct social engineering campaigns for, that is huge. If I'm General so-and-so or if I'm Commander so-and-so, you're probably going to listen to what I have to say. If your leadership style is authoritarian and people are scared of you, they're going to listen to what you're going to have to say, but they're going to be highly subjective to social engineering attempts because they're going to be scared when they see your name. They're not going to feel happy. They're not going to feel joy. They're going to be like, oh, my God, I got to do this right now. Those principles of influence are huge. The biggest one, to me, is liking, though.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the principles of influence. Have you found that there's trends of personality traits in victims of these attacks? Like, those are the basis of the attacks. Is there personality traits that make people more susceptible?
Yes, there is. So there is 6 big personality traits that I found for cyber victims. Let me preface, like, none of these are bad. So whenever I start delivering talks like this or something, I begin to start talking about personality traits, and people begin like, but not me. They feel attacked, but not me. But I will tell you this. So when it comes to personality traits, number 1, extroversion. The more extroverted you are, the more likely you are to be victims of social engineering. So if you're willing to talk to people you've never met face to face, you're more willing to talk to an attacker. That just kind of is what it is. Agreeableness.
Just going to take some notes here, Eric, so I can check off things that you're saying about me as you go through this list.
It's all good. Like, if you're an extrovert, you're guaranteed to get non-play. I am joking. But if the more agreeable you are, the more likely you are to fall victim to someone telling you something that is not actually accurate. The more conscientious you are, the more impulsive you are is massive. If you're the type to impulse buy, you might be the type to impulse click. That is a good tie with one another. Like, when we find victims of social engineering, then we find the level of impulsiveness. A lot of times that begins to meet up. And then openness to new experience. So if you like just to try new things out or do new things, you're more likely to be victim to a social engineering attempt as well. But also the harshest one for people to swallow is emotional stability. The more emotionally stable you are, the more likely you are to fall victim to social engineering attempt. Wow. Not because emotional stability is a bad thing. Of course, emotional stability is a very, very, very good thing. But if you're in a point of emotional instability, it is going to be hard for a social engineer to get you to work with them. You're going to be so all over the place. You're going to be sad. You're going to be upset. You're going to respond sometimes, and you're not going to respond sometimes. It's hard to get a person that's emotionally unstable to operate in a straight line. That is one as well. So all of those 6, that is your personality traits for cyber victims. And that has yet to change much. Before it was 5 personality traits. And then I started researching impulsiveness, and impulsiveness shot through the roof, where it's like, hey, if you're impulsive, you're probably going to impulse click. And we see that in new variants of ransomware. Before ransomware, it's like, hey, you're locked out. Good luck trying to get your stuff back. Now it's locked out. You owe us 1 Bitcoin, which is like $11 billion, whatever. And they say in 72 hours, it's going to double. And then in like 100 hours, it's going to double on top of that. And so it's trying to get you to impulse, get that level of anxiety up and get that impulse up where you got like 3 hours left. And the CEO is like, screw it, pay. Screw it, pay. Like, pay, we need our stuff back. And it applies that level of pressure and get that level of impulsiveness to shoot up in that person.
Wow. Okay. Is there hope? I always like to turn this to like, okay, like where do we go from here? Like since you've immersed yourself in this so much and it's like this is what you think about, what's the path forward for people? Like how do we help the human element?
There is 100% hope. There is definite hope through this.
Okay,
and
good.
so what it starts with like introspection. Like you have to understand yourself and understand how could you be victimized. This level of arrogance that we have on the security professional side is not good to say, hey, it only happens to people that are stupid users or people that don't understand the technology. And all those things are actually false. Social engineering is impactful for 80% or 86 or 90% of all data breaches. We cyber professionals, we are a big portion of that as well. So it starts with understanding self. And then when we conduct social engineering campaigns or when you conduct your phishing campaigns, if you have time, instead of saying, hey, you clicked, you go on the wall of shame, you take our remedial training, which is like click next 8 times, then you get your gold star, we put it on the fridge and everyone claps for you. Ask that person why they clicked. Then really begin to unpack that because you will hear things that will absolutely blow your mind. And if you spoof the CEO, you might hear, well, I'm scared for my job. If you really unpack that, and then you need to talk to the person in charge, whoever, and say, this person is actually scared. You need to calm everyone down, say, hey, there will not be any layoffs. Because at this point now, we got this human vulnerability that technology can't patch. Or if someone clicks, you might be blown away by what they say. Every phishing campaign that I do for another organization, we always meet with the person that clicks because I want to understand why and how can we address that? What level of care do you need? Because what we do when we hire people, you run background checks. And when you run background checks, why you run background checks? You want to make sure their credit's good. You want to make sure they're not a criminal, blah, 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 because you want to see if they're honest. That's just a screenshot at that moment in time. 10 years later, when that person is still in that organization, they are a totally different person. And so you need to understand who they are if you want to be able to secure the organization by having, instead of just saying, hey, look at the email header, or this is the type of attacks going out. Help them understand how could they be victimized, and then practice how you fight.
That's a really interesting take, and I like that framing quite a bit. And I also like the framing of not teaching people about specific like tactics, but instead digging deeper into that introspection so they can understand how they're susceptible and watch out for that no matter what the attack is, because they are just going to continue to evolve and change and everything else.
Yeah. And then see what does it take to secure that endpoint, because your endpoint is not just your computer. The endpoint's the person. Like, what's it going to take to help that person out? Because if not, if they are just doomed, then good luck, because what's going to happen is the attacker's going to make them assist them in their data breach. It's like the equivalent of having someone unlock the door and open it, and then having someone rob you, then have them close the door, and you be mad that you just got robbed. Like, dude, you opened the door. Like, you literally opened the door. We can't be okay with that. You got to talk to that person, reach that person, see what psychological vulnerabilities are there, and then start training them to that. Not everyone, just because you're online, we're all susceptible to the same things. What's going to get me is not what's going to get you. But we're just different people. But we all can get had at some point in time.
Can you talk a little bit about this concept of human factor authentication? What is that? And what does that mean?
Human factor authentication, that is a term that I coined that I absolutely love. Because that's the checks that we have in our mind to determine, is this person safe? Is this real or is it not real? We all do that. So what you do when you're first online are checks for human factor authentication. You look, you see the name. Do you trust the name? If you trust the name, then you begin to fill. And then from there, you begin to read. Initially, we all read in our own voice unless you really know the name. Then you begin to read in their tone. And so, like, if I see something from my mom, my brother, my wife, I read and I begin to read in their tone. And if the tone sounds off, then you lost me. You lost me. Like if I begin to see your name and then I start reading and there is just a ton of like grammar errors. Like it doesn't look like English is your first language. You lost me. You lost me, and I'm probably going to reach out to you and to say, hey, man, we're supposed to have that podcast. I got this email. Is this you? And you might be like, yeah, man, sorry. I was like, okay, we got it. And then from there, we all check. If you're in a professional setting, then you read all the way through. You read the name. Then you try to understand the request that is going on. And all these are like biological checks that we have. Because the biological checks that we have face-to-face or when we see someone, those don't work. Those don't work no more. And so that is as basic as we can get when it comes to social engineering from an email side. But when it comes to AI and when it comes to like deep fakes, then it goes a little deeper than that. Because then you can kind of tell when something, if the AI is not good and they look a little jerky and it's like, this is off. And so human factor authentication is just you going through your biological checks to make sure you're safe or not in a digital environment.
I have to imagine that AI and deepfakes, voice replication and stuff like that can create some really unique challenges here. You know, like I just got a call from my mom. She was in a car accident. She needs me to send some money to someone or call someone for something else. Like, I'm curious to hear your take on like where we see a leap in technology that begins to then circumvent some of the safeties and the checks that we've started to put in place.
To be honest, deepfakes and the emergence of like commercialized general AI is probably what scares me most. Because that's when that online, that face-to-face, that comfort factor, and also the anonymity, like before hackers used to hide behind anonymity. And so that anonymity, because you can't see me, and I can kind of appear how I want, whenever I want, and you can't find me really, I can actually reach you, because try first name dot last name at whatever.com. Now they can be anonymous, but they can appear and sound however they want. That's what scares me the most, because it's one thing for you to read the name. It's another thing for you to read the name and see the face. If you read the name and you see the face and you like the face, or you like the name and you like the face, there is a point in time where your guard's going to go down. Just think, more people meet their significant others, their husbands, their wives, their boyfriends, their girlfriends online. Like you see the name, and you see the face, then you begin to have this conversation. Then finally, all right, screw it, we'll meet. And you end up meeting that person. This ends up taking that to another level where I could appear as your mother, or I could appear as your brother, your cousin, someone that you know at work, and I can sound like that person. And you can see it, and you can almost have a conversation, or you can see it, hear it. That breaks down a lot of those psychological barriers that we have. And it makes it very real. It makes it very, very real. There was in Europe, I forget the organization off the top of my head, where the CFO had a deepfake conversation with another organization's CFO and transferred them $250,000. Totally fake. Totally fake. That is going to cause a significant problem because the speed of business has not slowed down to incorporate security. The speed of business continues to move forward. And so this industry of AI, which is not going away, and I'm not anti-AI, the goal of it is to appear so human-like you can't tell the difference. That's the goal of the industry. That's scary because as a social engineer, and what attackers are going to do is take that and flip it on its head and start exploiting us. It's like ransomware. We created encryption on the good guy side to protect data. They tell you like, hey, we're going to lock your own stuff out. You're going to have to buy your stuff back. Like, that's what attackers do.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so with people being the most vulnerable part of the networks, can people also be the superpower here? Like, is this something where we can turn our biggest vulnerability into thing that is our greatest strength as well?
Yeah, I do believe people are the most vulnerable in some regard because we have the most like vulnerabilities. But I also think that people have been our greatest strength because you as a person has probably blocked more attacks than you could ever realize. You know, everything that you looked at that's like, that's fake. We're blocking a lot more attacks than we realize. And so I firmly believe, though, if we turn the people into the superpower where we start securing the human and then we begin to see like some progress in that regard. If like 90% of attacks include the human element, if we can cut that down to like 70, we've changed the game. The economics of cybercrime will begin to tank. And I firmly believe if we impact the economics of cybercrime, less people are more prone to do it because there's just so much money in it now. It's almost purely a human problem. Because if most of these attacks are including the human element, we begin to secure that. We change the economics. We secure the world. That's why I firmly believe. Then it's only if you're hacking, you're actually going to have to know some stuff. You're not just going to fool someone into giving you the username and password. And then you use the username and password, and we're calling it hacking. That's social engineering, but we're calling it a hack. It's not a hack. You're very good at fooling people. That's what I think. If we empower the people and the people are the superpower, changes the game forever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, Dr. Huffman, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time together. Where can folks go to watch your TED Talk or learn more about you or the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 TED Talks that are out, and you can find those if you just go to the old YouTube and go TEDx, Dr. Erik Huffman, it'll come up, or you can go to drerikhuffman.com, and you can find some of my latest research, and you can find all of my talks that have been out there. If you're curious, there's also contact me in that. Feel free to shoot me a message, and we can talk about how we're going to save the world together.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Hey, no problem at all. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a blessing. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's time for Ask One Password, our advice segment where you can ask Agony Aunt Roo anything. This is where we answer your questions, whether that be security related or if you just need some life advice. This week we have a message from Natalia who asks, Hey Roo, just a quick question from the podcast. Will you create more templates like you did when you created the medical record? It would be great to have something for insurance, e.g. for health, auto, life, etc. Also, is Agony Aunt a British thing? I've not heard of this before. Thank you, Roo, and the rest of the podcast team. I mean, I'll answer the last bit first, just because I'm like that. But, Agony Aunt, that's not just a British thing, right? You had a thing where you write into magazines and, middle-aged women had columns and wrote back?
So it wouldn't have been called an agony aunt. It would have just been Dear Abby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Here in North America, I shouldn't say here in Canada, we don't have agony. That's a fancy 5-letter Wordle word that you could use for Scrabble. But other than that, you're not using that word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Roo's power went out again.
Did it?
I mean, I can answer this.
Give it a shot.
I'll take over. Roo's disappeared. His power's gone. I'll take over. Do we need a new jingle? Agony Matt?
Agony Matt.
Okay. Well, we do actually have a feature where you can make your own templates with whatever fields you need, and then you can pull up the template for whichever, and create the item. So, for example, you can create a template for big purchases. And Kate from 1Password's QA team has also given her advice on this, and she recommends the following. If you have something you save in 1Password often that doesn't fit an existing template, make a template with the item and the fields that you use and, duplicate them. For example, a big purchase template that includes all of the information you need, like appliances, TVs, computers, etc. These are secure notes that include the make, model, serial number, and the date of purchase price, warranty information, credit card used to purchase, that's also useful information, support site link, and a link to buy parts, and also attaching a copy of the receipt and the photo of the item. This makes it easy to find information if anything breaks. Kate says, I also have all of this in their own vault so they can export that vault to create a personal property inventory for insurance purposes should I ever need to. My template item for this has the field names and a reminder to add attachments, but is otherwise blank, so I could just duplicate it and fill in when I buy something instead of having to add all this stuff manually. So that is like the official advice. I'm going to add my own here. You can add fields onto an item. So go in, just make an item, and if you're looking for insurance, I think probably the best thing to do would be store it under, I don't know, password or something like that, and just add a bunch of new fields to it. Keep that item blank and then just duplicate it anytime you need to. I understand that this is a workaround. I would love to get some more templates in.
That's correct.
Oh, he's back. I took over. I was Agony Roo.
He just came in to critique your advice.
Did you explain what an agony ant is?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Because I didn't know either, and now I've missed the explanation.
Oh.
It's just Dear Abby.
It was someone that you could write into as a column in a newspaper or a magazine, and they would give you advice.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Okay, so if you have any questions for Agony Aunt Roo, please send your questions, voice notes, or letters to podcast@onepassword.com. You can include your name or let us know if you'd like to remain anonymous.
I would like to, branch out to more life advice, because you mentioned that. Like, that's where I've always thought, I saw a thing on the thing where it's, old coots giving advice for free. And I thought that would be, I would love to do that. You just come and tell me what's going on, and I'm going to tell you why that's a dumb idea and, tell you what I would recommend. I'm down with that. I think that would be fun. So,
oh my God.
Can't guarantee it. We internet security advice, but, happy to help. So,
yeah.
Okay, with that end of our Agony Ant section, we are moving over to Password Panic. This is our latest game, which gives our brains and memory a good workout. So let us drop in that jingle here.
Password Panic. Answer quick, recall the list, and only time will show how the competition in this edition of Password Panic will go.
Okay, so welcome to Password Panic, our fast-paced memory testing trivia game. Here we'll have to answer a number of general knowledge questions to create one long password, but there's a catch. When answering, Matt and Roo must recite every correct answer from the round in order before adding the new answer to the list. As this list goes long, we will create a complex password. Whichever host remembers the most is crowned the winner. So, with that, our first question, you've got your buzzers at the ready.
Oh, yes.
Which sport is played at Wimbledon?
Bam.
That's a good one.
Tennis.
Correct.
I entered the ballot yesterday for tickets.
Fancy. Which animal is known for being really slow but still manages to race in the children's stories?
Bing. Wait, race the children?
Races in children's stories.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
Tennis and tortoise.
Correct. What is the name of the classic rock band known for the hit Love Shack?
Bam. Tennis, tortoise, the B-52s.
My only problem here is how is that classic rock, but we're going to go with it. All right. What is the largest ocean on Earth?
Bing. Tennis, tortoise, the B-52s, the Pacific Ocean.
Winning. This is going to be a long one today. All right. What is the most consumed beverage in the world after water?
Bam. Tennis, tortoise, the B-52s, Pacific, Coke.
Incorrect.
Really?
Roo for the steal.
Yeah, tennis, tortoise, B-52s, Pacific Ocean, and coffee.
Also an
Oh, no!
I have to say I'm disappointed in you, Matt. The most consumed beverage in the world is tea.
What's that?
Tea.
Tea.
Okay. There's lots of types of tea.
We successfully completed on time.
Who won that? No one.
No one won that.
No one won.
Okay. This is an anticlimactic game, I must say.
So do we need a tiebreaker?
I mean,
I'll do the tiebreaker.
We have to say all the things that preceded it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm already out.
And tea.
and
tea. So the tiebreaker is going to be, I'll pick the one I think is going to be the harder one. What is the chemical symbol for gold?
Ding.
Okay.
Oh, no. Wait, what was the first one? Something tortoise. Oh my god. Yeah.
That's not supposed to be the clock. That's supposed to be he entered a ballot to go to this place.
Oh, right. Tennis, tortoise, the B-52s, Pacific Ocean, T, and AU.
Ding, 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 ding.
I mean, you got that handed to you, to be honest. Look,
Oh,
we're not
all
going
right.
to talk about fairness here, but
Sure.
you can't make the noise of the thing, and that's okay.
I think he thought that was a metronome.
Yes, he did.
I was like, oh, my time is running
Yeah.
out. Did you know the symbol, Matt? Did you know it? Or is this a moot point?
Is it AU?
Yeah, it's AU.
All right, okay.
He heard you answer. Of course he knows that it's AU. Look at him trying to be all like, I had no idea.
I only listening to 50% of what Roo says.
Confirmed.
Which letter did you get then, the A or the U?
Let us know what you think of the game at podcast@onepassword.com, and if it's full of expletives, we might read it out.
Leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
With an accent.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, that was delightful. I think that takes us to the end of today's show. This was fun. Internet connection issues and power issues notwithstanding. Love you both. Bye-bye.
Love you both. Bye.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to support Random But Memorable, and we always love reading your feedback. We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us, topics, requests, or even guests you want to hear from, please send us an email at podcast@onepassword.com. We read all your comments and look forward to hearing from you. We hope you join us in the next episode for plenty more random moments in the world of cybersecurity.